Investigators are looking into an hours-long standoff that left 5 people dead in Boone, North Carolina. 2 of the victims are deputies who responded to the scene. Our Fox News correspondent Griff Jenkins is in North Carolina with the story.
Authorities are investigating a tragic shooting in Boone, North Carolina, which left 5 people dead, including 2 deputies and the suspect.
Sheriff deputies responded to a welfare check. He ambushed them.
Watauga County Sheriff's deputies responded to the home Wednesday morning after reports the homeowner and his family didn't show up for work and weren't answering phone calls. When they arrived on the scene, they entered the home and were shot. Officers from roughly 15 different law enforcement agencies came to assist and tried to remove the deputies from the home, immediately locking down the area and surrounding the house.
All residents remain in your home with doors and windows closed.
The suspect hunkered down inside for more than 13 hours, periodically shooting at the officers.
We've got an officer shot.
Multiple first responders were shot during the standoff. Initial responding officers, Sergeant Chris Ward, died at the scene, and K-9 deputy Logan Fox succumbed to his injuries after being airlifted to a hospital in Johnson City, Tennessee. A procession escorting the bodies of the fallen officers held overnight.
They put their life on the line for us, and they don't get to go home.
It's unclear at this time how the gunman died. Police say, in addition to the 2 officers, he is suspected of killing his mother and stepfather, who were found dead inside the house. Investigators are now working to piece together what led to this deadly standoff. In Elizabeth City, North Carolina, Griff Jenkins, Fox News.